Hello again, I am Blunty, and this is the HDR-CX700V, which is the top-end flagship from Sony's current selection of mechanized video absorption devices, otherwise known as camcorders. Now, I really want to start showing you the very pretty pictures it sucks in and saves to its 96GB of onboard flash memory, because they look a lot like this. But we need to take a quick tour of the hardware first. Well, it looks precisely like most camcorders do. The form factor is familiar and intuitive. I'm not a huge fan of the hand strap. It's a bit skinny and almost cheap feeling considering this is the premium product. It wasn't exactly uncomfortable, but I've had better. But it does have a killer little perk. It's got a built-in USB cable, which is all kinds of convenient and handy. Once you flip open the 3-inch screen, the camera boots up very quickly and also reveals a few buttons. A nice solid feeling sliding door here that reveals an SD memory card slot for further expanding on the built-in 96GB worth of memory. A HDMI port for hooking up directly to your HD TV, and another USB port which, amongst the stuff you'd expect it to do, can actually be hooked up directly to a portable hard drive, and you can back up all your footage straight to it without even needing a computer in between. And if you're on the go or on holiday or something, this kind of backup solution is bloody fantastic. Every camcorder needs this feature in my humble opinion. Around the front lives a little button and swivel dial that gives you direct access to and manual control over features like exposure, aperture exposure compensation, shutter speed and white balance. Unfortunately, in use I found it a little oversensitive, making it quite difficult to get fine-grained control. Around the other side there are a few more little doors, and again these all feel beautifully solid and strong. No nasty little plasticky rubber flaps on this beastie, you know the ones I'm talking about. No, here the words premium build quality are the catch cry. You've got power input, a multi-AV plug for composite and component output to your television, an external microphone input, and a headphone port. However, the positioning of these mean that things may get uncomfortable if you're using an external mic and monitoring on headphones and trying to handhold, as the ports are inexplicably right under your hand. Up top, right where you'd expect it to be, there's an accessory shoe. Annoyingly, it's Sony's proprietary intelligent accessory shoe, which means if you want to use any normal video light or microphone that has a normal hot shoe mount, as almost every normal light and mic in the world does have, you'll need to buy a little adapter to cram in here. The zoom control is nice. Not great. It's responsive and sensitive and gives you nice control over the variable speed of the 14 times optical zoom. What stops it from being great for me is only my personal preference for the front-to-back rocker-style zoom control, which is more common on pro-level equipment rather than this left-to-right short-throw style control. And because the G Lens, which sits in front of Sony's superb Exmor R back-illuminated sensor, is wonderfully wide-angle, you'll also get this lens hood to help keep lens flares at bay. The hood does, however, make it slightly more awkward to actually get access to the control button on top of the little scroll wheel here. And it should come as no great surprise that the 3-inch LCD screen on board is completely superb. Sony are pretty good at screens, we know this. It's got their true black tech, which gives you really nice levels of contrast, keeping things nice and vivid and sharp even out in direct sunlight. It's also a touchscreen in an effort to make getting around the menus and settings more intuitive. I'm not a big believer in touchscreens on handycams, mainly because I don't want finger smudges on my damn viewfinder. But it works well enough to get the job done, and the menus here are pretty sensibly laid out. Nothing is buried too deep. It's not great, but it's not bad. So that's the hardware. Now, on to the performance. You know, I'm not really sure I actually need to say very much in this part of the review. I mean, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and even if you're as verbose as I am in these videos, it's hard to match. And let's be honest, shots like these really do speak for themselves. I'm still not going to shut up though. The combination of Sony's G Lens and their Exmor R image sensor technology suck in video with beautiful clarity. They are sharp and clear and crisp with vivid detail and accurate and smooth colours. This camera, as far as my experience ranges, is unparalleled by anything in this form factor out there in the crisp detail it captures. The camera offers a range of quality settings and frame rates to suit your needs, including all the way up to 1920 by 1080 at 60p, and yes, it'll also do that lovely 24p as well. Alongside those high-end features, you'll also get some more pro-level features like zebra striping and focus peaking to make using full manual control easier and more accurate. It has a 5.1 surround sound mic on board and on-screen mic level monitoring too, which is a very welcome feature. The mic itself is actually really good, especially for an onboard affair too. It deals with a range of environments and even wind without breaking a sweat.
I can't do this without my glasses on, it's too bright. And of course the advantage of being so lightweight, of having that inbuilt image stabilization which works so well, and of having that nice wide lens, is that you can do self-portraiture, which is very important for guys like me on YouTube, where we're our own cameramen a lot of the time. Sometimes we don't carry tripods about. It makes it really easy to do this stuff and get a good looking shot. So it's not all like this where you get with some cams where the lens just isn't wide enough and you've got a big ugly face in the way. But look at that. Nicely framed up shot. I can see the screen lovely in the full sunlight. The microphone should be picking me up pretty clearly, even over this sloshing water and the noise of tourists around me. It's gold.
The image can occasionally get a little bit soft at the extreme end of that 14 times zoom range, but when you're at those extremes of telephoto, Sony's clever tech shines again with some of the best image stabilization I've ever seen. Even shooting one-handed at full zoom, the unavoidable handshakes get translated into a gentle, floaty motion that reaches past merely usable footage and into the world of surprisingly nice zoom footage. The autofocus is fast and accurate. It doesn't hunt around too much. The autofocus transitions are smooth and pleasant, and there's a nifty little feature that lets you set the focus point by simply poking at the thing you want in focus on the touchscreen. You can even have the camera automatically track that object or person and keep them in focus as you or they or both move around. And I was surprised to find that this feature works flawlessly. I tried to trick it, I tried to get it to fail, and it beat me. It locked that focus on an object and kept it there. In fact, the lens and focus is so good, it'll even focus on stuff that's virtually touching the damn lens. See this bamboo? Listen. That was the sound of the lens hood thumping against that bamboo. That's how close it was. And using the little wheel to take manual control of the focus works well too, but as I said earlier, it's a little oversensitive, so getting smooth, slow focus pulls takes some particular practice, care and concentration. The auto exposure, though, can be fooled. I found it occasionally overexposed bright points in the image, like these cockatoos sitting at a dark tree. However, you do have a couple of options to manually control this problem, either by setting some exposure compensation or by full manual exposure. But again, the oversensitive control wheel can make things a little bit tougher than they should be to get it right. You can even take full manual control of the iris aperture while recording. Watch the grass relative to the tree bark here and see that in effect. In a wide aperture, the grass is very out of focus, lovely and soft, but as we roll progressively to a small iris setting, the depth of field increases and the focal plane is adjusted very smoothly, giving you some interesting creative options. In low light, this camera, well, it keeps shining. Their newest fanciest back-illuminated Exmor R image sensor technology means that even in lighting that would render many cameras utterly useless, this clever little bastard keeps on going, pulling in a crisp, clear image with very little image noise and very little motion blur.
And should you find yourself in a situation where there is insufficient light, you can always go into Paris Hilton vision, which is unattractive, but at least you still get the detail recorded.
One of my other favourite fancy little tricks this camera does is a super slow motion mode, where it'll take about 3 seconds worth of footage in super slow motion, which is unbelievable fun to play with, as I'm sure you might guess. But while many other cameras have tried this particular feature, all but the very expensive ones do it at a pathetically tiny resolution, which makes it more of a gimmick than something actually useful. Whereas the Sony here gives you a nice 1440 by 1080 high-res, high-def video that is entirely usable in a proper project. If you look closely at the slightly soft image or step through it frame by frame, and you know what you're looking at, it's easy to see that the footage has been interpolated up to this high res from a slightly lower resolution in camera. And there's some motion tweening interpolation as well to push the slow motion down even further. But I think you guys will agree with me that in normal use, playing these files at their normal slow motion pace, they look terrific, smooth, beautiful, elegant and fascinating. and certainly vastly better than the slow motion modes of any other consumer level camera out there. Special thanks to Blobber112, by the way. He's one of my viewers who I ran into at random while testing this camera, and he let me shoot him leaping around in slow motion for some cooler shots. Oh, and that slow motion mode works just as well in the dark, and even in the night vision mode. You can't tell me that's not completely awesome. The long and the short of it is this: the Sony HDR-CX700V coped with any and every situation I threw at it, and it did so shockingly well. Most of the time I left it in its intelligent auto mode, which is very rare for guys like me who like to keep cameras in a more control freak friendly manual mode. But the intelligent auto mode actually did a fantastic job of adjusting the settings correctly and accurately. You can trust it, which is, well, it's fantastic. Hardware wise, it's built very, very well. It feels solid and reliable, but it's also surprisingly light, which means carrying it around all day on long shoots is a dream. The battery life is acceptably lean too, so even with the standard battery pack that comes in the box, you'll get well over 2 hours of full HD footage recorded, and there's a high capacity battery available that will keep you shooting for many, many, many hours. There are some hardware design decisions that I don't have much love for, but overall there's small annoyances that I'm ready to live with considering the outstanding performance it has: the wonderfully wide lens, the beautiful image quality, the great low light performance, the sweet battery economy, the small size and light weight. It's simply the best camera I've found for a run and gun video blogging, holidays, event shooting and documentary style shoots, where all of the benefits I just mentioned are absolutely essential to getting the very best footage with the most convenience and as easily and hassle-free as possible. It's a camera with pro-level features and performance in a package that's not intimidating for even relative novices. It's not without its flaws, but the scales of balance are heavily tipped in favour of its benefits. And here's the final word on what I think about this camera. The unit I had in for review impressed me so much that I'll be spending my own hard-earned cash on one for my own personal use. And as far as recommendations or endorsements go, that's about as good as you can get. I'm spending my money on one, so you should too. Thanks for watching. I'm Blunty, and I'll catch you next time.